When I decide has come to pass many years and I have been paid. Otherwise, that's just how I am. I'm born good. Not half as a human being. One rather found his fist on the table. Seizes me by my form. She could only insist once that no, always Spanish, raised to reckoning with me. For my desire has to come to pass more than once, and I have more than once, but that's just how I want. Not half. Marilla banged his fist on the table. Yes, it's the mark of my gift. Are you aware, good sir, that I even drank by her stockings? Are you aware of that fact? Not her blood, sir, for at least that would have borne some resemblance to the order of things, but her stockings, yes, her stockings. A little more sure. I drank that away too, a gift from for her very own, not mine, and we live in a chilly little corner, and she caught cold this winter, and now she's coughing up blood, not to mention her dear little notes. But didn't they when I was hard at it from dawn till dusk, scrubbing and cleaning and washing the children's room, and washing the children for cleanliness has been a habit of hers since infancy, and she is weak of chest and prone to consumption, and I can feel it. Do not think the more I drink, the more I feel. That's why do I hide in icy passage. trying to feel. It's not merriment, I see, but sorrow. I drink that I am suffering. I think that I'm suffering deeply. That below his head until it pain must have been despair. Young man, he continued raising himself once more. I read as it is I read a certain sorrow in your features. I read it there the moment you walked in, which is why I was so quick to dress you. It is not to disgrace myself before these gentlemen of leisure. I read it there the moment you walked in, which is why I was so quick to dress you, for it is not to disgrace myself before these gentlemen of leisure. You already know it all one way. I relate the story of my life to you. I seek a man of feeling and education. You should know that my spouse attended an aristocratic school for daughters of the nobility. In the presence of the governor and the other persons for which she received the gold medal and a certificate of distinction. The medal was sold long ago now, but the certificate of distinction is still in her trunk, and just recently she showed it to our landlady. And though she and the landlady are in perpetual discord, the urge to show off a little for anyone, and reminisce about better, happier days was too strong to resist. Happier, and I do not judge her, no, I do not, for this is what has remained in her memory, and all else has turned to dust. Yes, yes, a proud lady, proud and unbending. She scrubs the floor. No one else has turned to dust. But she will not be slighted. That's why she cannot let Mr. Lover's yet no sweetness pass unchallenged, and when Mr. Lover's yet gave her a guinea for it, she took to her bed, less from injury to her body than from injury to her feelings. I married her when she was already a widow. With 3 children. She married her first husband. An infantry officer for love, and ran away with him from her father's home. She loved him beyond measure, but he started gambling, ended up in court, and promptly died. He beat her towards the end, and though she stood up to him, which I know for a fact, with papers to prove it, she remembers him to this day with tears in her eyes and reproaches me with his example. And I am glad. And I am glad. I am glad, for in her imagination at least she once was happy. So she was left with 3 infants in the park, one savage district with I also happened to find myself, and she was left in such hopeless beggary that I, for all that I have been in my life, am quite incapable of even describing what her relations turned their backs on her, and she was proud to prowl. So then, my good sir, I also widowed, with a 14-year-old daughter from my first wife. Offer my hand in marriage, for I could not bear to look on such suffering. You may judge You may judge the depth of her plight from the fact that she, educated, well brought up, the bearer of a famous surname, consented to marry me. She did, crying and sobbing and wringing her hands, but marry me she did. for she had nowhere else to go. Do you understand, my good sir? Do you really understand what that means, to have nowhere left to go? No, this you have yet to understand. For an entire year I carried out my duty in godly his fashion, and not a drop did I touch. He jumped at his pint measure of vodka, for I am a man of feeling. Yet even thus I could not please. Then I lost my position, also, through no fault of my own, a change of personnel, and then I began to partake. A year and a half must pass now since we finally found ourselves, after lengthy wanderings and numerous calamities, in this magnificent capital city graced by numerous monuments. And here I received a position. This time it was my own fault. The mark of my character came to the fore. So now we occupy a little corner of the house, and Amalia Fyodorovna is our landlady. And how we get by and how we pay, I don't know. Many others live there too, of course, some, sir, of the fullest kind. Yes, meanwhile, my girl from my first marriage has grown up, and the things she had to endure from her stepmother along the way, well, the less said, the better. For although Katerina Ivanovna's soul overflows with the noblest sentiments, she is fiery, inimitable, and quick to slap you down. Yes, sir. But what is the use in remembering? Sonia, as you can well imagine, received no education. I did try some 4 years ago to give her a grounding in geography and war history, but because my own grasp of these fields is uncertain, and due to a lack of decent primers for what books there were, well, they are no longer even around. Those books, that was all the teaching she had. Cyrus the Great was as far as we got. Later on reaching maturity, she read several books of a romantic bent, and just recently, through the good offices of Mr. Lebeziatnikov, she read with great interest a certain way of Tom Lewis' physiology. Perhaps you know it, and even conveyed parts of it to us aloud, and that is the sum of her education. Now let me turn to you, my good sir, with a private question of my own. In your view, can a poor but honest girl earn much through honest labor? She'll not earn 15 kopecks a day, sir, if She'll not think opposite days, sir. If she's honest and has no particular talents, and even then only if she works herself into the ground. And even then Counselor Ivan Ivanovich Kostov, are you familiar with the name? Not only failed to pay her for sewing half a dozen holland cloth shirts, he even insulted her and showed her the door, stamping his feet and calling her all sorts of names, claiming that a collar she'd sewn was the wrong size and not straight. Not to mention the little maids going hungry. And Katerina Ivanovna, wringing her hands and pacing the room, her cheeks coming out in red blotches, as is always the way with this ailment. You're sponging, girl, eating and drinking and keeping yourself warm. But search me how you can drink and eat when even the little ones don't see a crust of bread from 3 days at a time. But search me how you can drink and eat when even the little ones don't see. I had my feet up at the time. Well, all right, I was tipsy, sir, and I could hear my Sonia, as tame as they come, with that meek little voice of hers, and her fairy hair, and her face always so pale and thin, and I could hear her saying, "Well then, Katerina Ivanovna, do I really have to do that?" Meanwhile, Darya Franka, a malicious woman, well known to the police, had already made a few inquiries through the landlady. "Well then, mocked Katerina Ivanovna, what are you saying exactly? Precious jewels? Well, blame her now, my good sir, blame her now. This was said not in soundness of mind, but in tumult of feeling, insidious unto the crying of unfed children, and it was said more to offend than for its precise meaning. For such is Katerina Ivanovna's character, and the moment the children start crying other from hunger, she immediately eats them. Come 6 o'clock, I saw Sonia come, get to her feet, cover her head, put in her little burnous and leave the apartment, and by 9 she was back again. She went straight to Katerina Ivanovna and laid out 30 rubles on the table without saying a word, not even a glance. She just took off our big green Dane shawl we have one between us, made a drop of diamonds, put her head and face in, and lay down on the bed, her face to Sir, I was in the same state as before with my feet up, and that young man was when I saw Katerina Ivanovna work over the summer. Both of them both, yes, sir. And as for me, I was tipsy and had my feet up. Melado fell silent. His voice just seemed to break off, and with some haste he poured out a glass drank it and cleared his throat. And ever since then, good sir, he went on after a pause, in consequence of a certain unfavorable circumstance and certain malicious reports in which activity Daria proved especially zealous, alleging that she had not been shown due respect ever since my daughter, Sophia, has been obliged to take the yellow ticket, on account of which she could remain with us no longer. For our landlady Amalia would not allow it, though she effortlessly assisted Daria and Mr. Lebeziatnikov himself. Well, it was on account of Sonia that he had that rumpus with Katerina Ivanovna. First he tried his luck with Soneshka, then he suddenly got up on his high horse, a mere man of considerable education, to live under one roof with the likes of her. Well, Katerina Ivanovna didn't let that pass. She stepped in, and that was that. Soneshka usually comes by a dust. Now helps out Katerina and brings us what she can. She lives at Kapaniko, knows the tailor's rent the room there, and Kapanama is At that moment, an entire platoon of drunkards who were already far gone came in off the street, and the sounds of fervent prayer and a cracked 7-year-old voice singing a little farm carried over from the entrance echo noise. And now he appeared to have lost all strength, but the drunker he became, the more he wanted to talk. The recollection of his recent success at work seemed to have received him and had even marked his face with a sort of radiance. Raskolnikov listened attentively. All this, good sir, happened 5 weeks ago. Yes, the moment those two, Katerina Ivanovna and Semyonov, found that, goodness, I thought I'd been taken up to heaven. Before you would lie there like a beast, and abuse was all we heard. But now they're going around me, hushing the little Lucy. He's tired out from work, he's rested. I was being served coffee before work and hot cream, real cream, do you hear? And how they scrape together 11 rubles and kopecks to fit me out so nicely I'll never know. Puts my magnificent collar shirt, pants, new uniform, all tiptoe for just 11:50. I walked in after my first morning at work, and what did I find? Katerina had prepared 2 courses, soup and corned beef with something we never even heard of before then. She doesn't have a single dress, not a single one, sir. But now, here she was, cut up as if to go to a party. Incredible how she does it, incredible how she makes everything from nothing. Hairdo, a nice clean colored cuffs, and by the end she looks a completely different person, younger, prettier. Do you hear I came home after lunch for 40 winks, and just imagine what I heard then, only a week before Katerina Ivanovna had had the most almighty row with the man. But here she was inviting her room for golf.